Hi guys, we are back once again for another one of our sessions with the Your Health is Lit team. I'm Charlotte, aka the PDMP.
I'm Donna Williams, aka the Public Health Queen.
And we are so excited for tonight. This session is going to give me so much life. We have Kindness. She is coming on to talk to us about Keaiden. This is about to be everything. So let's just jump right into it. So maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got out of nursing school and I was like, I'm gonna be a NICU nurse. And so I did. I went to orientation, all of that. And I met Kindness because her son was my first NICU love of my life. I was his primary nurse for a while. And then he got popular and famous, and then, he became NICU famous. It was on the news and all kinds of other stuff. And man, he was just such a joy to be around. And so I'm so excited to have Kindness here to share Keaiden's story with us and just to talk about prematurity. A lot of people don't know that prematurity is something that really is plaguing our community. 1 in every 6 Black infants are premature. And there's a lot of different reasons about that. And we can't wait until later on this month. We'll have Dr. Brittany Blue to come on and talk about, prematurity in our community and, all of the ins and outs of that. But this is something that's happening in 1 in every 6 Black babies. They're born early. So prematurity happens. If you're born before 37 weeks, you're considered premature. If you are born before 32 weeks, you're considered very premature. And Keaiden was considered very premature. So I'm going to let Kindness hop in and tell her story.
First of all, I'm nervous.
That's okay. We're just talking, girl.
Okay, so I'm going to summarize this the best I know how because we all know it's a long story.
It is. But it's worth it, though. It
is. Because Keaiden was worth it. He still is.
Yes, girl, he is so worth it.
So, oh my gosh. Where do I start? I had Keaiden when he was 27 weeks. And the reason that I had him so early was because his heart rate started dropping. But before all of this, I was already having complications and had to be hospitalized. So I was monitored 24/7. And he was born at Mercy, of course. And all his Mercy nurses loved him. And they didn't want to let him go. But we all thought that the best decision would be to move Keaiden to Children's. And that's where I met Charlotte, like she said. And she had it going on. She really I didn't know that Keaiden was her first. Had she told me that, I would have been like, excuse me. I need somebody else.
Yeah, man.
But you wouldn't even know that she didn't you wouldn't even know Keaiden was her first because she really did put off that she was a pro. But Keaiden and me ended up loving her with our whole hearts, and we still do.
Yes.
But like she said, Keaiden, he was trached, and he was 27 weeks. He was born at 11.5 ounces, and he was the first preemie I had ever met in real life. Well, until I found out that there was other preemies.
Yeah.
And I was so scared. I was scared to touch him. I was scared to do stuff with him. I couldn't hold him for the first month of his life. And all of that was really hard. And on top of that, I was trying to be great and go to school and take care of a preemie and work.
Yeah.
But Keaiden really changed my life. Like she said, to know him is to love him because his smile literally stole everybody's hearts. I'm like, dude, how many moms do you have? Because because people like wouldn't even be working with him that day, but would come and see him just because he would lighten up. You know, he would lighten up your day. And when he first got the children, he was acting a fool.
Yeah.
He was acting a fool.
Let's talk about that for a second. So, Keaton, he was 9 months when he came to us. He was really sick. He had like bronchial pulmonary dysplasia and all kinds of stuff, which led to him being trached. He was trached when he came to us.
Yeah, he was already trached.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how long he had it, but he was such a grown man. And I say that with so much love. When I tell you, like, you know, people are like, oh, blood, sweat, and tears, like, that was us. His tears, my sweat. We would literally spend hours, you know, just trying to get him stable. And it was rough. Like, it was rough on both sides. And, you know, one thing that I really appreciated from Kindness was, like, she worked and she went to school. So she would call me, and as long as it was me on the other end, like, she would stay. Like, I'd be like, girl, go home. He's fine. Like, we got this under control tonight. Please go home and get some rest. Come and see him in the morning. And because I was on the other end, she'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go home and get some sleep. But those first couple, I don't know, maybe like the first like month or two, he was a savage. Like, we were on like all kinds of drips and, you know, just trying to stabilize him. I just remember it being such like a critical point because he was new to us. He was already 9 months old. 9 months old in the NICU is like, you're grown. Like, you know, people were like afraid. Like, people were like afraid of him because we didn't know him from 27 weeks. It's different when you know them from 27 weeks until. But he came to us 9 months. And we're like, he's big. And I was like, well, you know, like, I took care of trach patients upstairs, so I can do this. We're gonna do this. Man, but as he got bigger and more stable, people like even though he was sick, and that's what I always tell people about me working in the NICU, there were so many miracles that we got to watch. You know what I'm saying? Like, they did not have, like, the prognosis for him initially wasn't really good. And for him to live the life that he did, to me, was just like, it was just amazing. And to know that I played a part in that before he was popular and he made the news and he was in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and before he had girlfriends on all units of the hospital, that was my baby. That was my baby. I absolutely loved him. What things would you say that you learned, or things that like were most difficult for you during your NICU stay?
I think the most difficult thing, like, was the first time that I ever saw Keaton desat. And I was like, my heart, Jesus, like, I swear I almost fainted. I was like, no, this is not happening right now.
So for people who don't know, so in the NICU, we have monitors, and they monitor your heart rate, your oxygen saturation. So when she talks about desatting, a lot of premature babies, they do this thing, well, it's called apnea prematurity. And then with Keaton also having lung disease, his oxygen saturations would dip. And we're not talking like a little bit. We're talking like he kind of changed colors a little bit. And then we have to bag him. Like, we're like bagging him back up and like trying to get him to turn brown again because he was getting kind of gray. And it's kind of like this game, not really a game, but you're chasing their sats and making sure their heart rate is stable and all of that. That is scary. Was that over at Mercy, or was the first time you saw him desat really bad?
No, that was at Mercy, and then he started doing it more when we came to Children's, but I think that was because of the change of an environment. And I remember calling one of his nurses at Mercy, like, crying. I called Shelly, and she came running. And I'm like, Keaton keeps doing this, and I don't know what to do. And I keep crying, and I don't know what to do. He came up there. But no, that was hard. And then trying to juggle everything because, like, I mean, Caden's in St. Louis and I work in North County and go to school in Godfrey and I live in Belleville. So, like, learning to actually juggle all of that and, like, drive around and try to get everywhere. I think, like, one time I actually, like, I don't think I actually know that I fell asleep behind the wheel and crashed, but I'm still here. But that was the hardest thing. And I had to teach myself that, okay, you can only take so much because at the end of the day, you're still human.
Yeah. I remember I used to tell you to go home and go to bed. She's like, okay, I just worked a 16-hour shift. Miss Charlotte, I'm on my way up there. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. He's asleep. You need to be asleep. Everybody needs to get some sleep. We'll see you tomorrow. You can come. And so you would come like early, right before change of shift so we can kind of talk and hand off. But she used to, Donna, she used to try it. Like, she used
Sound
to.
like you were a warrior.
Yeah, I know. She was. I'm like, didn't you have class? And like, you worked, you did this, and like, you need to go home and go to bed. Like, I get paid to be up all night, so you don't have to. And I think, that's hard for, some moms. I used to encourage a lot of my moms to go home and go to sleep because you're already stressed because your baby's in the NICU, and you trying to juggle everything, and you're exhausted, so you're not going to be functioning right. And it that exhaustion, it turns into like some people are like, oh my gosh, that mom's crazy. I'm like, no, if you talk to her, she's been slept in 3 days. She's a 5-year-old at home, and not that you have a 5-year-old, but she's a 5-year-old at home, and she misses her other baby, and she feels like a bad mom if she leaves this baby up here. And when I would always just reassure my moms, like, it is okay for you to go home and go to sleep. Please, kindness, go home and go to bed. Do not come up here.
No, but Keaton stuck around to watch me graduate.
Yeah.
Like, I remember running up to the hospital the day of my graduation, and they're like, what are you doing here? I remember it was, I think, Dr. Lynn, and he was like, you look like you're thinking about not going to your own graduation, because Keaton had came back from Rankin, Jordan, and went up to Children's PICU again. I'm like, why would you do this week?
Yeah. So Rankin Jordan is a step-down hospital in St. Louis. So for kids that have medical needs, trachs and vents, it's kind of a, once they don't need to be in the hospital anymore, it's kind of a place for them to go. And then we try to transition them into going home. And so Keaton started doing this thing where he'd like go to Rankin, and then he'd come back and he'd go to the PICU. And just back and forth, back and forth, he would do this. And I remember seeing the picture of you. It's like it is the best picture. It's goals. We're gonna have to post it in the group because that picture of you, your graduation day with your baby and all your graduation stuff, I was like, this is everything. Like, it was everything for me, just knowing, like, taking care of him and seeing you go to school and doing all of that. And so for you to be able to celebrate that with him, and because I know how hard you were working, and you would call me just exhausted. So I'll let you finish telling the story, and then we'll ask more questions. So in the NICU.
So eventually Keaton got too big for the NICU.
He aged out. Like before we talk about him aging out and how mad and upset all of the NICU, like Donna, we were upset.
It seems like he was a star.
Yes, because by that time, even people who had never even taken care of him personally, Keaton had his birthday party in the NICU. This man had a tiered cake. And we have these 2 little like transition rooms. We like shut the transition rooms down. And like Keaton he had so many aunties. Like, it was ridiculous. I remember walking into the the break room. It's like Keaton's birthday party. Like people brought stuff. He had clothes and gifts and just he was so loved. So and we made the choice because once patients are 2, they're no longer considered like neonates. And Keaton was getting so big that we could not properly take care of him. So Keaton would kind of do this thing that he would do, where because he was 2, one going on 25, like when he was 1 and 2, he had a trach. So sometimes he would throw a temper tantrum, and he would clamp down his airway. He would desat, and we'd have to bag him. We would have to bag him. And it kept happening so frequently that we just thought it would be safer for him to be where the big people go. To make sure that he's getting, the best care. So, but even in those moments, he was silly. He was silly. Oh man, he was super loved. The birthday party. It was like the birthday party was legit. It was legit. His favorite movie was
Madagascar.
Girl, every night before we went to bed, we had to move it. I mean, you had to move it to sleep. Before I tell your mom.
How many times can we watch this movie?
Move it. If you don't move it to sleep, Keaton, because it's 11 o'clock, and you don't like to get up and get your hands on done in the morning, and then you get saucy, and then we have to turns into a fiasco. It's a bedtime.
I remember they had to have it on in the ambulance, like, for him. Like, they bought him a portable DVD player, and I still have it just so that they could play Madagascar for him portably.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna let you finish your story. I know I keep interrupting, but I like it.
Oh no, you're okay.
I love talking about, like, he was gosh, y'all, like that man, he was a man. That man, I used to tell him, like, you don't pay any bills. You need to go to sleep before we get you a job so you can start feeding some of these babies.
You would swear he did, and yes. He felt like he ran everything and everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which he kind of did sometimes. Sometimes he did. I'll give that to him because he definitely ran me. But no, okay, so the move from the NICU to the PICU, which I'm like, oh my God, we got to get to know all new people. That's literally my thought every time we had to go somewhere else, like from Mercy to Children's, from Children's to Rankin, and then the PICU and all of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're consistently getting to know people. But like over time, like it got better because like I would meet new people and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really glad that I met you. And like trusting new people to take care of Keaton and all that, that was hard sometimes because, you know, you meet a stranger and you're just like, I don't know. I know this is your profession and all. And like sometimes I really like did have to tell, you know, some nurses or like some of the people that take care of him, like, no, you have to do this way. And then some people wouldn't listen to me and they would learn it the hard way because Keaton would show them.
Yeah, it's really big, you know, that, you know, especially in our community, I feel like it's kind of a finesse, right? Like I used to always tell people all the time, I used to joke, I'm like, Keaton's mom, her name's Kindness, and she's actually really kind. Like, she's so nice. She's so nice because the spectrum that I see, especially in our community, because we get so frustrated because of the lack of education, you know, about what's going on, that we're either, like, parents can be either very, like, not that they don't care, but they are afraid to advocate for their baby, or the way that they advocate isn't very well received because you can't come to the care team cussing and fussing. That's going to get you kicked out of the hospital. That's not going to work. And so, one thing I can say about kindness is, like, even when we would have rounds or all of that, when she would step up to advocate, she would ask questions, but then she'd say, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And she was always very composed and never, like off the chain, like always, like, but never but never was there to get pushed over either. And I think that finding that balancing act of, like, all of us working together to take care of Keaton. Because even when he went to 7 East, his stalker nurse girlfriend, that's what I ended up, his stalker nurse girlfriend, so I used to work on the respiratory floor. And I called them and I was like, my baby is coming out over there today, and I need you guys to do this and play Madagascar for him. And I need you. So it is hard, because even me being a nurse, knowing those nurses on 7 East, like, I know that they know what they're doing. Like, I used to work with them. I absolutely love them. But, like, not doing it yourself. Like, I'm like, okay, well, he likes this, and he needs to be in bed by 9 o'clock. And because if not, then he gets really crabby in the morning, and he doesn't want to do his hands on. So it is rough. It's rough on both sides, you being his mom, and even, us relinquishing that. Like, NICU nurses are possessive. So us, like, sending him to the PICU, it was a thing. It was a thing on our unit. We were, like, a lot of people were not happy. It was a thing. It was definitely a thing.
Oh, man. Thinking about all this stuff right now is, like, crazy. Like, we really went through all of this. But, okay, so to go on with Keaton's story. So he was going back and forth between Rankin Jordan and the PICU at Children's, and he was actually getting better. So we thought. The week that he passed away, I was working that weekend, and I actually had 2 shifts, and I was calling off, like, literally probably like an hour before, because Keaton wasn't doing that well. But they were supposed to do a bronchoscopy that Monday. And my supervisor actually wouldn't let me off. It wasn't my regular supervisor. It was another supervisor. And I'm like, my child's sick, and it's crazy that people would do stuff like that, because you never think that they would. And I'm like, no, my baby's sick. I can't come. I don't call off work usually, so I shouldn't have a hard time. I don't call off work. But I didn't go for my evening shift, and I went to the overnight. By the time I got off my overnight, I picked up my sister, and we went up to see Keaton. But before we could even get up there, they were calling me and saying that, they were bagging him and trying to do everything that they could, and he was still desatting and he wasn't coming back up. And I remember getting up there and everybody was just around his room. And it had never been like that before. Like, usually people gather around Keaton's room when he had these episodes, but it was never like that. Like, the hallways were blocked off, and I'm, like, trying to get in there because I'm trying to see what's going on. And I just see them, and I see them, like, trying, and he's not responding to what they're doing. I just didn't understand what had happened. Because when I had left the day before, he seemed like he was going to be okay. And then Monday we would see what was going on. So me being me, I'm trying to pray. I'm like, God, you bring the dead back to life, all this stuff. And I'm just like, come on. Like, I'm like, you can't take him like this, because I just knew that that's not, I was like, this happens. This is Keaton. This is not what's going on right now, And when they stopped and they were just like, we can't do anything else.
Now, we agreed that we were not
going to do this. I know, she's going to make me cry.
We were not going to do this. No, it's okay. Oh my God. Like, you start telling the story, and I'm like, okay.
So.
And I'm like, we agree. So, look, you guys. On the phone, me and Kindness, we were talking, and I said, and she said, Kindness was telling me, she was like, Charlotte, do not cry. And I said, I'm going to be really good.
But no, it was like literally the most unbelievable moment in my life. Like that. There's been a lot of things that have happened, but I never thought that would.
Yeah.
Especially thinking that he was going to come home. That was the most painful thing. Because I thought he was going to come home. Dang it, Charlotte. Oh my God. I need to get it together. Okay.
It's okay. You need to take a break?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So he passed away at 2.5, and he was going to be 3 in November 2016, and he passed away June 12th. And yeah, life hasn't been the same since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was Keaton. Now, sometimes I'm really sad, but then sometimes I can't help but look at his pictures. I'm like, look how happy you were and all the stuff that you were going through, and you still smiled anyways. And here I am, mad at some of the littlest things.
Mm-hmm.
Some days, thinking about Keaton helps me a lot of days.
Yeah. He was so loved. I think that when we talk about, now I'm gonna cry. So when we talk about, especially me being a nurse, those patients that you never ever forget. I remember getting the phone call that he had passed away, and I had just moved from St. Louis to Tampa, and I was a wreck. I was like, absolutely not. I was like, no, because she just posted a picture of him in his crib, and he had his arms up, and he was chilling. I had just looked at the page, and he's in the PICU, but he's chilling. Absolutely not. And he was just so loved. And to know him was to love him. He was so silly and just so his smile was everything. Yeah, girl. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
For the record, those weren't tears. I got specks of dust in my eye.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, man. We so I know Donna has some questions for you, so we're just gonna let her.
Okay. So first of all, Kindness, I would just want to say thank you for sharing your story. It was very great, and it takes a lot of strength to come on and tell your story and what you went through. So what advice would you give for other NICU moms who went through the same thing that you went through or are going through those things right now?
I would say, just try to be there for your baby, because being in the NICU and the PICU for so long, I saw some kids that were never really visited, and I feel like that not having that love from a mom kind of takes away from them. And then also, you don't always have to be strong. Yeah. It's okay to cry and ask other people for help because that's what other people are there for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, and don't give up. Do not
Perfect.
give up.
Definitely think don't give up at all. So what support resources did you find most helpful? Were there any organizations that you reached out to for support for NICU moms or anything on the internet?
I know on the internet there was, I think it's called Hand to Hold, and I would talk to someone basically that had experienced the same thing from time to time, And then actually being in the NICU, like there was March of the Dimes, Ronald McDonald House. Like there are days that I'm telling you, I didn't eat for days in a row, and I just go up to the Ronald McDonald House and eat a couple of snacks, or maybe put some noodles that, you know, they had there, so I wouldn't have to leave. And then go back to his room. I walked around in my pajamas like it was my house, because at that point I just didn't care anymore. But yeah, definitely March of the Dimes. They had like lunches and stuff like that from time to time, and dinners, and they like just did stuff for NICU parents here and there.
Okay. So now that we've heard about Keaton and this star, what would you like Keaton's legacy to be?
That's so hard. I want his legacy to just be like, you know, I guess just how happy he was, and for other people just to be that happy at the simplest things, like a movie.
Yeah.
Just the movie. But yeah, just for people to be happy and realize that life is short and you're not always promised tomorrow. And that's what I want people to remember.
I'm so glad that we did this. Not just because Keaton was like, I used to tell Kindness like I was Keaton's dad. Like, I'm the I'm Keaton's dad and you're his mom. And we know what's up. And you remember when I would see you in the hallway? When you guys moved up to 7, like I would see you in the hallway and I was like, you tell Keaton, don't forget who left him first. Because he's famous now. That's for his autograph.
And everybody was trying to take him from you.
This is my baby. Thank you. Yeah. After Keaton passed away, Kindness and I we talked on the phone for hours. I was like, I felt like we talked on the phone for hours. And I remember us talking about, you know, Keaton, his legacy and what he meant. And even though he was only on the earth for 2.5 years, like how many lives he touched and how like crazy. Like, I'm like, people from everywhere love this boy. Like, that's my baby. Every time I see Madagascar, I'm like, Alex. So, you know, we had talked about doing something like this, and so I just want to tell you how proud I am of you and how much I love you and Keaton, and I'm just so glad that, you know, like God worked his way for us to go from there to here. And we just really appreciate you like coming on and sharing your story, and we hope that it like touches the lives of, you know, everybody who watches. Do you have anything to say before we go?
I don't know. I like to move it. I don't know. That one was for him. It was for him. I felt it in my spirit.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kindness. We do really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and it was nice